Have you ever played through a game and thought, I wish I could play that game for the first time again? For me, it's Dark Souls 1 and 3, Baldur's Gate 3. I haven't played through Bloodborne yet, but I am certain it would be on this list. Mass Effect 2, Frostpunk, Hades, Dead Space 1 and 2, Darkwood, Spec Ops The Line, KOTOR 1 and 2, Bioshock 1, Gears of War 1, 2, and 3, Bungie's Halo series, Cuphead, all of these amazing games, and many more games. At some point, I sat down to play it and walked away from it, never realizing that it would be the last time that I play it, but that I look back at with fondness of the time I got to experience it. Some games you play through once and you put it down. Some games you have a little more longevity through, either an engaging multiplayer or a replayable single-player campaign that offers many paths of storytelling or character building. But nothing ever truly lives up to the first time going through a game, unless there is some form of milestone system. But once you complete that, what's left? At some point, you just put the game down and you move on. Elden Ring is a game that more than earned its place on this list. Back when it first came out, I dove in head first and played it every single moment that I could. But eventually, after about 150 hours of exploring everything I could, fighting all of the bosses, and trying to do as much as I could on my first run without any guides, I beat it. And when I did, I felt two things: profound satisfaction and a somber longing for the feeling I had when I first opened the door to Limgrave and saw how big and beautiful the game was. The excitement of exploration when first entering Liurnia, Caelid, Leyndell, all of the regions was sublime. It was a feeling that no other game had given me, and upon completion, I understood that I would never play something that could ignite that flame of ambition in me quite like Elden Ring. So out of respect to the game, I proceeded to hunt for all of the achievements by doing some New Game Plus runs that I ran through, ignoring all of the exploration, and just sprinting from boss to boss to race through the story and acquire all of the items I had missed by not doing certain storylines. But through these runs, I never felt the excitement of the first time again. So, once I had all of the achievements, I put it down, never to play it again. When FromSoft first announced the Shadow of the Erd Tree DLC, I was initially just excited to get some more Elden Ring gameplay, but that was just the extent of it. But then I saw the price tag and said, holy shit, Miyazaki, what are you making? And then I bought it and assumed that it would end up being worth my money. I figured that my vastly overleveled character would be too overpowered, and I would just blast through the DLC without issues, so I picked up a character that was around halfway through the game and was reasonably leveled for the challenge, and played through to the point where I could begin the DLC. And on top of that, I chose to play a holy damage build to give myself an additional challenge, as it is one of the weaker damage types in the game, as most enemies in the base game resist it, and I eagerly waited for the DLC to come out. Now before we move on, I'm going to be talking about some pretty big spoilers here, so if you are okay with spoilers, cool. But if not, click off the video and get exploring, my friend. There is so much to see and experience. Best of luck on your journey, fellow Tarnished. Now, back to the video. Then it came out, and when I first took the portal to the realm of shadow, I was immediately taken aback by two things. Firstly, I was shocked at how massive and gorgeous the world looked, and secondly, when I opened this map, it was unmarked and tiny. This sparked that flame in me again and got me excited to explore. But then I found a mausoleum, which is a new kind of landmark, and that got me more excited because FromSoft was making new landmark types for the DLC, and I found a character battle with this guy who would proceed to immediately one-shot me despite being a very high level. I was confused. Then the game told me about a new leveling system. Then it told me about a system to level up your spirit summons. The revelation that I was essentially starting over despite my high-level character and my completed build blew my mind and poured gasoline on the burning desire to explore this game. It made it feel like an entirely new game. Having finished the DLC now, I can safely say it is the best DLC I have ever experienced, and that $55 price tag was more than worth the price. It took me around 20 to 24 hours to fully complete my first run. And I have no words to describe the elation of every second of it. It's of such a high quality, I was once again left floored by Elden Ring. So, what's this video? I'm gonna dive in and gush about the things that the DLC did to make me feel like I did when I first opened up Elden Ring in 2022. Let's do it. I mentioned that there was a new leveling system present in the DLC. The Skadu Tree Blessing. A blessing that is gained by finding Skadu Tree fragments. Also, I've heard that the C might be pronounced as an H, so it's like Shadow Tree, which makes sense. It's just Shadow Realm, the Shadow Tree. I'm gonna say Skadu Tree because it's funnier. Anyways, these are little bits of that big guy over there, and you exchange them for power at the Sites of Grace. There's also an identical system for powering up your spirit summons. That involves you finding and exchanging revered spirit ashes to do. This leveling system only affects you inside the Realm of Shadow, so it encourages you to explore the Realm of Shadow in its entirety in order to complete this DLC. The main pillars of play in Elden Ring are exploration and combat, and this leveling system encourages you to do both in order to find more level up resources. Whether you are finding more Skibidi Badu fragments or revered spirit ashes, you are always on the lookout for more. This system makes every character feel like they are starting over from the beginning despite having a fully completed build. Having this new leveling system adjacent to the regular one is the first of many new and exciting things present in the DLC. It also gave me something to strive for if I ever felt stuck on a boss, which in the early part of my run through of this DLC, I did. I could just go explore, and not only uncover more of the map, but level up more. Speaking of maps, just like when you first start playing Elden Ring, the map is this tiny gray box to be explored, and with each map you find, it gets bigger and bigger until eventually it is this massive thing. The joy of finding a new piece of the map and seeing just how much stuff there is for you to explore is incredible. The DLC replicates this experience by having an entirely new map, completely detached from the lands between, in the Realm of Shadow. I feel like if it was an extension of the original map, it would not have felt as significant to explore, because starting from square one and having no point of reference had this world feel foreign, new, and exciting. On top of that, there are new landmarks and biomes. The landmarks being mausoleums, being places where you fight boss fight style NPCs, crosses, being glowing crosses that give you a bit of lore about Mikola and the Realm of Shadow, tall ruins, they're just ruins, but I call them tall ruins because unlike the ruins in the lands between, these ones require climbing rather than going downstairs and finding a secret entrance. Furnace golems, these guys.
No, wait.
These guys. Serving a similar purpose to the Erd Tree avatars of the lands between, they're boss fights, and when you beat them, they give you tears for your mixed physic. But boy, these guys are tough, man. Jails, a new dungeon type that offers a lot of lore to the world, and more difficult catacombs that take longer to complete than any in the lands between. Jails were one of my biggest causes of death, not the enemies, not the bosses, specifically the one jail that had a lot of parkour on jars. Jarkor.
Jarkor!
No! No!
Jarkor!
Making new landmarks in combination with the new biomes to discover and explore keeps the game feeling fresh, and on top of that, further contributes to the Realm of Shadow feeling different from the lands between, and that feeling of newness. There are a bunch of new weapon types: light greatswords, beast claws, hand-to-hand arts, great katanas, perfume bottles, backhand blades, throwing weapons, and thrusting shields. Personally, my new favorite weapon type is the perfume bottles. I always wanted to try and make like a perfumer build in the base game, but it just wasn't possible. But now, such power. Also, the light greatsword's moveset looks like real-life greatsword form rather than just throwing the sword equivalent of haymakers, which I also like a lot, but it's good to see actual form in the swings. Getting to try out the new weapon types has been really exciting and refreshing. This DLC has story in it that not only stands on its own, but also expands and recontextualizes the lore that we already had from the base game. A story of twists and turns and tragedy, played out by a wonderful cast of new and interesting NPCs that all culminates in one of my favorite fights in all of Soulsborne history, when all of these people who were at one time companions face off, divided by cause, half wanting to destroy Miquella, seeing him for the monster he was, and the other half those blinded by loyalty to a being that enchanted them and forced them to love him initially, but now feel beholden to Miquella for one reason or another. The music that plays during that fight is called Those United in Common Cause. It is now one of my favorite tracks in all of FromSoft history. It really tugged my heartstrings during the fight, and now whenever I listen to it, I lament having had to slay these characters I liked and used to be aligned with. Having to see their scattered bodies after the fight was also just... I will never emotionally recover from killing more. He's adorable. I'll never forgive you, Miyazaki. I'll never forgive you. There are far more learned Elden Ring scholars than I, and I am certain they will have a field day with the lore dropped in this DLC. All I know is that we owe the Bloodlord Mohg and his entire dynasty a heartfelt, earnest apology. What America and her family did not just to Mohg, but Radahn, boy did Miquella and Malenia do Radahn dirty. The whole purpose of Malenia fighting Radahn initially is realized here in this DLC, and it is absolutely abhorrent. The world is evil, heartbreaking, disgusting, and somber. What we learn of the jails and the jar folk is unsettling. It makes me even sadder about Alexander. And finally, in classic George R.R. Martin fashion, the family tree of America and Radagon is more like a hedge maze. Miquella as a villain is one of my recent favorites because of how we see this character for one fight. But because of the crosses scattered around the map and the NPCs that we speak to, we feel his presence throughout the entire DLC. And after we learn the truth about Miquella, everything we thought we knew was wrong. He reminds me of Iago from William Shakespeare's Othello, a man who is regarded very highly among his peers as a good and kind man, but is truly one of the vilest, most envious and evil characters in all of his works. Why I love Miquella as a villain so much is because we hear of how good and kind Miquella is, but around the realm of shadow, we find all of the human aspects that would amount to a great person discarded by Miquella in pursuit of godhood. Miquella the Kind is a lie, and he knows it. He discarded everything that made him worthy of that title, so he has to brainwash you, and most notably, Radahn, into loving him, which is so messed up, but awesome from a story standpoint. The storyline of the DLC was incredible. Also, shoutouts to Egon for being a really awesome one-off NPC. BAM! There are many great boss fights in this DLC, and I enjoyed every single one. Every boss had something to offer, whether it was a steep challenge or a particular cinematic experience. This guy in particular had one hell of a lead up and a cinematic. Dear God. I managed to get through most of them after a few tries, barring the last one. This guy, Radahn, is back, baby, and he is not fucking around this time. He is in his prime. This fight is not only one of the most cinematic in Soulsborne, it is the hardest in all of Elden Ring. I remember back when Elden Ring came out. Radahn was an incredibly difficult boss, and unfortunately, too many people complained and pushed FromSoft to nerf him. Pre-patch Radahn was a menace, and I wish he stayed that way. After the nerf, people were saying that Elden Ring was the easiest Soulsborne, and I don't think that to be a spicy take. I don't disagree with that. I think it is. I think it's the Soulsborne game that I've had the easiest time with. But now, with Radahn getting his second shot of being this unkillable demon, I think Elden Ring is no longer the instant choice for easiest Soulsborne. This fight is hard, but it deserves to be. Radahn should not be an easy fight. Look at him. I can excuse the nerf for Radahn when he is suffering from Scarlet Rot and insanity. I can accept that lore-wise. But I'm gonna plant my flag firmly in the camp of do not nerf this reincarnated Radahn, for the sake of respecting the character's strength and prowess, and for the sake of making the narrative make sense as to why Miquella was so obsessed with him to the point that he resurrected him and brainwashed him, and also why Melania lost to him so badly that she had to nuke Caelid. But yeah, he kicked my ass, but I beat him. The first time, it took me about 10 tries to beat him with summons. The second time, I beat him with a friend of mine, and we cheesed the shit out of him. And it was so easy. We just tanked everything. So overall, the new bosses all offer something interesting, and Radahn coming back put the biggest smile on my face, despite the horrifying context, lore, and circumstances behind it, and despite the fact that he kicked my ass. It was great. One of the new biomes in the Realm of Shadow is the Abyssal Forest. It's a very easy place to miss, as the only entrance to it is obscured behind an illusory wall. That is in a room that is hidden down a ladder, hidden behind a dam's water stream that is also down a ladder that is very easily missed and ignored because it is a bit out of the way of your main path. So if you missed this, I'm not judging you. I missed it initially. I had to look this up. It's a little silly, all right? It's a little bit stupid, a little silly. But once you arrive in this area, Torrent forcibly kicks you off of its back and disappears. You try to summon him again, but he is too afraid to come out. What? This is an amazing opening to this area. As you explore more, you find that the area is wrought with frenzied flame. You find these demented creatures that you instinctively try to slap the crap out of, but they are completely unaffected by you. They then proceed to grab you and afflict you with madness to the point of dying immediately, right then and there. The madness of the frenzied flame is too potent for anyone to bear. You come to realize, oh shit, I'm in a horror game. You see there's a ton of tall foliage around, so you sneak silently through this shadowed swamp that makes the perils of Caelid seem welcoming. Eventually, after some time eluding these malformed avatars of unfathomable mental unmaking, you happen upon an old decrepit manor that seems as inviting as it is terrifying. I won't spoil any more for this section, but boy oh boy, FromSoft nailed this section. It is unlike any other area I have played in Soulsborne titles to this point. Keep in mind, I also haven't played Bloodborne all the way through yet. There might be one in there, but I loved this section here. It forces you to engage with the stealth system of this game, which I thought was non-existent, because personally, I'm a fan of playing a great sword man with a great sword plan. So when I see enemy, I slap enemy. End of story. This was a wonderful new experience from this series as a fan of horror games. I am really glad that this section, as short as it was included in this DLC. Elden Ring is truly a game for the history books. It is one of the greatest games of all time. Despite this DLC making Elden Ring feel fresh once again, I feel that there's an elephant in the room. I am unsure that achieving freshness in the Souls-like genre will be possible for much longer. I feel that Elden Ring is the best we will ever get. I think the Souls-like game style, while one of my favorites, may have finally run its course. I genuinely don't know what improvement, addition, or innovation they could possibly make to have this style of game feel fresh and not begin the descent into reusing every idea FromSoft has ever had. In Elden Ring, there are already bosses in the base game that show up numerous times. I didn't mind it, but it didn't excite me when that happened. It might be possible to keep things fresh, but I personally don't feel that the odds are favorable. Personally, I feel that the well has almost dried up. And that isn't a bad thing. It is a situation that breeds creativity and innovation, two things that I know a developer like FromSoft has in droves. I want to see what else they can come up with. All good things must come to an end eventually. The excitement and novelty of a moment or a thing can leave as quick as it happens, but the appreciation of it can last forever. And I know I will appreciate this game and those that came before it, as well as the time I got to experience them all until I am shuffled off this mortal coil. But as even this series of games will tell you, change is the only constant in life. It can be terrifying, but it is necessary, and trying to deny it by imposing a forced stagnation on things will always only ever end badly. Despite this game being an overwhelming success, and I do mean overwhelming, I don't think it wise to stay the course. But we will see what happens. If FromSoft does switch things up, I look forward to whatever new direction they take with their craft. Hello! Thank you so much for watching the video. Have you played the new Elden Ring DLC yet? What did you think? What are your thoughts on the future of Soulsborne games? Do you think there is more untapped potential in this style of game, or do you think that the well is drying up as I do? Also, if you do play Elden Ring, what is your favorite build? Me, as mentioned before, Strength Faith. I love Strength Faith. I like to carry on the tradition of Solaire being a sunny bro, you know? Also, being a paladin in Dark Souls, it's just cool. Feel free to let me know your thoughts on the video and the questions that I just asked down below. I read all of your comments. Damn, this DLC was incredible. I genuinely couldn't believe it. When I kept finding more and more shit, it was just like back in 2022, man. With all of that said, I won't keep you. Thank you again so much for watching the video. It truly means the world. Stay safe out there, and I will see you in the next video. Have a good one.